All right, so we are going to talk a little bit about contracting. This is a big topic, and I'm using this lecture both for contractors and homeowners. So we are going to be going over this with the city abandoned residents as well, and I'm happy to teach this in other communities because I think what we have is sometimes we have bad contracting, but sometimes we have bad clients. And so it's really important, I think, to educate both sides of the equation because the client is often the problem, not the contractor. So I want you to know what the law is and to be better at your job, but I also want to use this as a tool. And if you have somebody who's problematic and arguing with you about it, we're going to have this as a video that you can actually say to people, I have a video for you to watch on contracting. And we're both on the same page now because this is something that we're educating you. People don't know how to be contract clients. You have a lot more practice being contractors than they have practice being clients. So it's really a problem. And I did 40 years of contracting, I'm just saying. So there's a little background on me. I did it for a long period of time. I also chaired the Planning Commission and the County Parks Advisory Board, and I worked a lot in U.S. Fish and Wildlife. I built Abandoned Youth Center. So I've done a lot of these things that are like community organizing kind of things. And one of the things that I learned about that is, and all this consulting that I've done, and all these different scenarios that I put in myself in, is that it really matters who your audience is. That's one reason why we're teaching in these small groups to people about local topics and the kind of work that you do. And this is something that we're trying to get across to the homeowners, that they need this education before they dive into projects that involve contractors. And if you've ever built a house for somebody, you can just understand how complicated that can be over the period of time that you're building a house. But also think how about complicated that could be over 5 years of forest management. When you're trying to come back time and again, you're going to run through different layers of this. So it's complicated. We get that. That's what we want to talk about. And reputation is everything when it comes to this, especially in small communities like that. Now we have a limited number of customers that we can work from here, or if you're a big contractor, you're working for a few people, Fish and Wildlife. If you get off the grid with them and you get off the rails and you're out in the track somewhere and you're out in the weeds with them, you're not going to get back easily. And I'm just saying, from neighbor to neighbor, that happens. So and then you also ruin other contractors' ability to work in that area. So when I first came to Abandon, I spent a lot of time repairing the landscape contractor's reputation in general to make the company that I had to fix a lot. Plus I was female, plus I was young. So I kind of had this steep hill that I was climbing. So if somebody starts burning somebody on this course or vegetation management in the area, everybody's going to get burned. So it's really important that all of us kind of look out for the health of that. So it's easier to keep a customer or a contractor than it is to burn one up. Because when you do that, another contractor likely won't work with you. And I don't know about you guys, but I talk to all the other contractors and they say, hey, I built a house for that lady. She was a pain. I am never going to work for her again. Well, I am not going to try to do a $75,000 landscape for somebody who's already been a pain to somebody else. So it's incumbent upon you to help each other when you run into problem people to and we're going to be working in districts. So we're going to be rolling this out and we're going to have this information pretty quickly. And it's going to impact us, definitely. So there's also this relationship that you have with the tribes and the nonprofit agencies like Coquille Watershed and the Coos Watershed and Curry Soil and Water Conservation District. They have a bigger picture that they're working on. They're more concerned about their watershed or their cultural sites than they are about our gorse. So that's going to be a game changer. They may have to let the gorse go because they don't have the funding this year because they're putting in a new water main. You've got to kind of dig and dug around into their world a little bit. And then remember appreciation. This is one of the things that I really try to get through to the clients is to thank the worker that did the work, thank the boss for doing the administration to get you there, thank the agencies that helped you get to this point if you're cooperating or collaborating with somebody. So I think that's really a piece of that we tend to, and I'm guilty of it. As you work longer and longer with more and more difficult clients, you tend to get jaded, and you tend to say, oh God, here we go again. You've got to try to keep that in your employees and in yourself. You've got to kind of keep that alive, and people need to keep that alive. If they had one bad experience, you need to remind them that you are not that bad experience that they had. I am a new contractor. Let's do this a different way. You don't have to have the same experience as you had. You hired somebody different. I'm doing a different type of job. Here's my references. Move on, okay? And then be clear and firm about your needs. I had many clients that I said no to over the years. No, I can't meet your budget. No, I can't meet your schedule. No, I don't want to do that project. No, you can't have a landscape unless we have irrigation. And oddly enough, they did go full circle and got bids from other people, and they came back to me. And they always, a year later, thanked me for the irrigation. They said that the budget was realistic because that's the work that we got done. And they're really happy with the product that I did, even though it cost more, it took longer, and they didn't get it as soon as they wanted it. You know, but they got what we said we would do when we said we would do it. So that's really important. And then again, focusing on solutions, not on problems. They're going to come up, just try and steer away from them. So, don't assume anything about either party. Check your facts. We went through that a little bit. About your site, checking your facts, but check your people. A lot of times with absentee homeowners, I actually Google their existing property, where they are, because that's an experience that they already had. So I look at their house in relationship to their neighbors, like are they all sandwiched into some tight neighborhood, but now they bought 5 acres? Now I know they don't know how to manage 5 acres because they lived on a postage stamp for the last 10 years, right? So is it a high-end home? Did they used to live on a hill? You know, is it have a tile roof? Is it in a high fire risk area? Is it a shack that they have somewhere and this is their new dream home? You learn a lot by kind of looking about that. Also, you want to look and see if their name comes up in relationship to a lawsuit over and over again in your Google search of them. You might not want to go there, and I've had that happen to me, where I looked and there's 5 different lawsuits or problems with a client, and no thank you, I'm too busy, I can't help you right now. It's very easy. The exit is right there, okay? Knowing your property lines. We have Onyx and many GIS mapping. Don't really believe GIS map because it shifts a little bit around on the satellite, but your Onyx is going to be more likely to be a more accurate thing. Try to find pins if you can. It's a great tool for showing you're not a surveyor, but it's great when you do come across them to clear around them and point them out to clients for their setbacks and all that. The client and the contractor both need to protect themselves. They need to make sure they have homeowners insurance, that they look like they could pay if there was a problem or there's a cost overrun. Again, the contract is huge. Having your copies of insurance, really nice to make the copy of certificate of insurance and get it on file with people so they know you're authentic. Get your utility locates. Contact the neighbors like we talked about in the area around you. It might generate more sales, but it's going to definitely generate goodwill. If you show up at 7 o'clock in the morning in a retiree's neighborhood with a giant piece of equipment on metal tracks and drive over their asphalt road and crack their sidewalk, you're going to have a problem from there on out with the neighborhood. Here is the Jetty in District 1. This is the number of property owners that Bear is dealing with at the Jetty in the property owners. This is the city of Bandon's task, is to carve all of these people up and get them to all get rid of their gorse at the same time in the next 2 months. Not an easy task. So if you can help him do that task or connect 3 or 4 of these dots together, you're ahead of the game. If the homeowners are smart, they'll all get together and they'll hire you collectively to come down there and do the work. So it'd be really great if Chris already had a piece of equipment that was different than Jason had, and he was down there and Jason said, hey, I can't get to that piece, can you reach it? I can reach it, okay. You know, By the Sea Gardens has something down there, they have a different, they could smooth everybody's stuff out with their tractor when they got done. They could smooth everything out and put grass seed down for you because they have a hydroseed machine. We'll have Valley Forestry can come in and be all your hand crews. Nobody needs to have a hand crew because we'll have Valley Forestry in the area and they have great hand crews. So you're going to use them. And then 1 guy or 2 guys becomes the applicator for that whole district. You could herbicide the whole Jetty in a day if we do this right. And everybody's making a profit there. That's one mobilization, right? So that's really what we're wanting to see is more of a collaboration in terms of that and more of aggregating again. And this is the fire management as part of that, looking at the whole picture of how you're going to get in and out of there. And this is the Jetty Road coming in and there is no coming out. So look at your specific view right here. This is a great example of all of those people have got to go. If there's a fire, a tsunami, or an earthquake. Let's just say, not a good picture here. So we're going to focus on this area first, trying to eliminate as much as we can out of here. And when we open up this course, we're gonna open up some open area, which is gonna help us. If there is a problem, we're gonna have less things to worry about. So here is the licensing people that you may or may not know. So there's a couple people in here that have landscape contractors licenses. You are double dipping today. You're getting both the contractors 5 hours, plus you're getting Oregon Department of Ag for pesticide. So when I can teach both, I will teach both. Sometimes I'll even teach CCB hours at the same time. It's a lot of paperwork on my end to do that, but if we can triple dip on local topics down here, that's my goal to get to you guys. And these are the things that would be covered if you had an Oregon construction contractor's license. So it's roofing, siding, carpentry, plumbing, tree servicing is in that. Okay, just saying, vegetation managers, tree servicing is in that, okay? And then you don't want to get into any of these handyman or construction repairs things without the right license. So if you're a landscape contractor and you don't have a contractor's license, you don't want to go fix that guy's siding for him. That's not your job. You've got to hire somebody to do that for you, okay? You can do gutter cleaning, pressure, power washing down there. You can do debris cleanup, including yard and construction sites. So a lot of you guys that are in excavation can get away with it if it appears to be this. And you can be a property manager in that area, and you can have a handyman agreement if the work is less than $1,000. And that ain't very easy to do these days. There's hardly anything we do for less than $1,000. So this is where you're going to have to get into the CCB licensing. If you get into touching that structure in any way, you're going to need to have that CCB license. And there's various levels of CCB licensing. And your homeowner should know that. Hey, I had 9 licenses. I had the biggest bunch of licenses you could possibly have to mow somebody's lawn. I'm just saying. And that's what we did a lot. We did a lot of maintenance. We didn't need licenses for any of that. But we did have it because it was more of a buffer. But if I went in to sell a project, I said, hey, look, I can do everything and build your house. I have them all. You know, I choose to do this piece. I'm going to mow your lawn, but I have this other stuff. So that's a piece of why to get one. So you have to have a written contract in the CCB world for residential structures that exceed $2,000. So that's important. Your contracts need to be in writing. You have to have some required terms in there, and you can. All this is on the CCB website. But you have to include that in your contract. You have to have the name, address, phone number, and your CCB license in there. You have to have the customer's name and address, where the work will be performed, and just a description of the work performed. And that includes expectations. If you say you're going to leave this and it's going to require hydro seeding in the future, you need to say that. I'm going to remove the gorse, but it's going to require hydro seeding in the future. Okay, or I'm specifically not doing erosion control. Just say it, right? Because the second you didn't say that, you're the guy that didn't do the right work, right? And then the property owner's rights under the contract, you can tell them anything you want. You can say you have to give me 150% up front. You can tell them you got to stand on your head and wear blue on Tuesday. You can tell them anything you want in that piece right there. You can literally put any kind of terms that you want on there. You have to defend them in court, but the minute that person signs that, they have agreed to buy you a new Mercedes, pay for your kids' college education, whatever you can sneak in there, go for it. But that's where your point is. That's where you get to write down what you can and can't do as limits. But you better damn well do it. That's the thing. So you can write down any of those rights, and it says your warranty in there as well. This is all going to grow back. That's a warranty. It's all going to grow back. And this is only a one-off thing. I'm only mowing it down for you. I'm not dealing with the herbicide piece. And then if there's going to be a problem or an arbitration process, read carefully what it takes to go through arbitration and mediation. I have been a mediator for the Landscape Contractors Board, and it is hours and hours and hours of he said, she said, documentation, and all that kind of stuff. You better be starting to make that ducks in a row the minute you drive on that job site the first time with your pictures and your documentation. This is when I talked to them, this is what I said, this is what I did. You better make sure of that, because guess what? The CCB doesn't do anything for you. The OLCB doesn't do anything for you. The ODA doesn't do anything for you if somebody sues you. It's you that defends yourself. And if you're working outside of the rules, there's OCP, all those people are going to run out the back door if you're working outside your rules. So that's what this is all about. It protects the customer more than it protects the homeowner. It protects the homeowner more than it protects the contractor in many ways. So here's your CCB website. You can look that up. So let's look at landscape contractors. So this is a place where you can plant and install lawns, vines, trees, nursery stock. You cannot install irrigation without a separate license for that. You cannot do drainage and things like that without a separate license for that. So there's a primary license, and then there's all these add-ons. I had all of the add-ons. That's called all phases. So if you are going to be a landscape contractor, you're going to limit what you're doing. You're going to be needing to have only those small licenses. But as you start adding things, you're going to find, especially with landscape contracting, that they're interwoven, and it's kind of hard to not do all of it eventually. So you're going to have to keep adding licenses to that. And touching irrigation, which is water, is a big deal. And you don't want to touch the city's water. You only want to touch your water. And you want to have a plumber between you and the city. I have a backflow device which lets me put in a backflow prevention device in there. I'm allowed to touch the city water, but I still hire a plumber because he is the last guy to touch the city water. So then you can do some minor construction things like arbors, decks, patios, driveways and stuff, but they're usually not wanting you to do big structural stuff, and you're not getting over 4 feet tall without engineering. So you want to be careful about what you're doing in that. You don't want to be starting to build the Great Wall of China. That's not your deal. You need to start getting into the CCB stuff there. And then drainage systems and water features is another piece of that. Water features can break and get into the ditches and send things down the ditches, so it's kind of important to know how to build those. So you can mow, edge, so you see lots and lots of guys here in the area working that do not have any licensing, nor do they have liability insurance, nor do some of them have workers' comp. So when you're working around a lot of these contractors that look like contractors, they have nice fancy trucks, they have trailers towing behind them, they're all wearing uniforms, they're running around, they may not be licensed. And you should look, because some of them also have little like numbers written on there, and what it is it's the Coos Bay business license number. It's not the anybody number, it's just a Coos Bay number. You pay $15 and you got one. It doesn't say that you're doing anything. So you really gotta know if you're gonna subcontract something out to somebody, make sure that person has liability insurance, workers' compensation, and has the correct kind of licensing for the work that you're subcontracting out. So you can do these things outside, mowing that. There's a lot of guys, that's a great living form, have at it, it's awesome. And I chose to do that kind of work in addition to my kind of work because it paid the bills. But you need to know when you start working with somebody doing something new or doing something that might involve erosion or any of that kind of stuff, and you're working around another contractor, make sure that the blame doesn't fall on you because you're the guy with the license and the insurance. See what I'm saying? So if they have a problem, the customer has no recourse because they have no licensing and there's no assets and there's nothing to go for. He's Joe Bag of Donuts. But you're the big shop with a $97,000 piece of equipment and the fancy F-350 pickup. You're the guy that's going to get attached. Anybody who's on that job site, you're going to get attached. Okay, so that's how that works. So the Landscape Contractors Board, odd as it sounds, is actually much more rigorous in terms of its contract than the CCB, the Contractors Board. Crazy. You can get your contractor's test in a weekend. You can get your landscape contractor's test in a lifetime, right, Holly? It's a very difficult test. So Craig, who has the highest level of contracting licenses, he can build motels and sewer treatment plants. His license is easier to get, easier to maintain than my licenses are. So I'm just saying, don't underplay that license. So they have a lot of stuff, which I won't go over here, that is required in an OLCB license, and you better dang do it, because that's checked on. They are pretty clear about that, and their enforcement guys are actually better than the CCB enforcement guys are. So if you have change orders, you need to put those in writing. That is really a key part of either one of these situations. But if something big comes along, the guy says, oh hell, go ahead and do the other acre, and his wife didn't agree to it, she's not signed on the contract, you're done. You're not getting paid for the other acre. So you really want to get those things documented, okay, in terms of that. Huge. And if you encounter something and there's damage and you're trying to get that prevention plan in place, you might want to write that into your contract. This is my prevention plan. In case I break a window, it's the contractor doesn't want to pay for a hand crew. The client doesn't want to pay for a hand crew, so they're going to let me mow closer to the building than I'm comfortable with. The avoidance plan that we have created is that they will replace their own windows if something goes south. I'll do everything that I can in my power to not have that happen, but if it does happen, then in order to save money, the client has decided that they will make their own repairs. You can write that in your contract. If you don't have it in there, you're making the repairs. And then here's all of us that are ODA licensing. These are the things that if you're buying, applying, or supervising any restricted use, that's you, right? You're restricted use. So you're restricted use or not? You are? So there's a few restricted use guys in here. I don't mess with restricted use. I don't have anything to do with it. So it's not a thing that's my thing, but it's definitely a higher level of licensing for that. If you're advertising or advising others on the use of them, you also have to have a consultant's license in that situation. You can't apply pesticides as a public employee. That's why Jimmy's here today, because you have to have a machine-powered equipment. You have to have a pesticide license for that. They now limit things on schools and some public property. They're really careful about that. That's a big change that's come along in the last few years. These rules change from year to year. And every year ODA gets out there and educates people on webinars and stuff on how to do that. It's worth it to find out what they are doing this week, because they're changing it all the time. They just took 2 more things off, made them into restricted use. They're sending out, notifications all the time. Stuff is changing all the time. ODA moves a lot more than these other ones. The other ones tend to make their changes in legislative things in 1 or 2 year cycles. ODA is constantly making upgrades to their stuff. So they're getting new products coming in. So do not apply if you don't have a license. I'm just saying, just don't do it. There's a ton of people, guys, doing it, but it is a huge problem. And that's one of the things that we're really trying to get people to get the licensing more simplified and more locally available. That's on my list. As soon as we get through with the pandemic, I'm going to start teaching pre-testing so that I can get more applicators. The tests are extremely challenging. I'm working with Oregon Department of Ag on that. There's a lot of failure rate in it, so we're really trying to work on getting that a little better in this area, so people are really using the licensing as a tool instead of avoiding it. And then you don't want to apply pesticides or even fertilizer as a landscape maintenance without specific conditions there. So the applications are to residential lawns and gardens. So be careful about this residential thing. It's kind of gray. So if you're going to apply on residential, I would definitely consider getting an applicator's license, because it's a little gray, and if something goes south, we want to have it. And if somebody turns you in, you'd want to have it. So here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about ethics. Here's the insurance piece of that. Is it ethical? Is that a point? No, but let me tell you from experience, it's huge. It's a giant piece of your overhead. But if you've ever had an event, and I just looked at fell a tree, it landed smack dab on top of a milepost marker that drove down into a fiber optic line. $25,000. And I mean, yeah, right? And I mean, how big is a milepost, right? I mean, it could be that quick that it could change your whole world. So I'm just saying, insurance is like, he's got hair-raising pictures on his phone of stuff that's happened, and he's careful, but he works on the right-of-way, cars are flying by him, you're working in the woods, trees are falling on you, you're working around homes, people got their stuff, all over the yard, and they haven't, told you what's what. So that's the reason for that. And then very important that you know that your insurance matches the scope of your work. If you're going to be working at the $1 million rate, you need to have the kind of stuff that covers that. If you're going to be taking jobs under $2,500 and you have no employees, you're in a different category. So the minute you have employees and the minute that you're working in commercial or you're advertising something or you're in the open market for it, you're jumping up. I carry errors and omissions. In case I tell you something wrong here, I'm insured. Just in case something happens and you followed my instructions and they were the wrong instructions, my voice, who I am, is covered. That, what I say is covered. So that's really important, and that's really different. I mean, I have 9 other licenses and that insurance. I'm just saying, so you can't have enough of that. And then keeping a copy and all that stuff and updating it with your clients is huge, because you might move from insurance company to insurance company or whatever, or change the level of licensing that you have or any of that. And it's really hard to keep up on that when they send you this big packet and you're not sure what it says in it, but it's worth it to have a verbal with your agent and somebody you can really work with on that. So you can agree to your expectations, day rate, by the job. This is those contractor looks that we were looking at, contractor ideas that we're looking at. For the contracts, and they save time, money, and energy, because is you gotta have to talk to somebody about who gets the locates. Is that on you or is that on them? If you hit something and they didn't get the locates, you show up and there's no locates done, that's not on you, it's on them. Then you have a new decision. Are you gonna work anyway without locates? Or are you gonna stop and regroup because you didn't get locates? So I often got locates because I wanted it in my control, you know, in my timeline. Who notifies the government agencies? That matters in what we're doing down at the Jetty. There's a ton of government agencies. In this case, Bear is letting everybody know. We're all trying to whatever, but you know, there may be some issues if you have a job that's closer to whatever, and you're gonna need to make sure that that person is okay with it. So who does what and when for exactly how much? Be really specific. I'm gonna do this on Tuesday when the moon is full and Saturday. I mean, get down to the brass tacks on it, because if you don't show up during that timeline, then you're out of contract. If you say you're gonna do it sometime in the next, you're gonna finish the job by January 2024, you're safe. You probably could get in there with a weather window between January 2020 and January 2024. Give yourself that margin. There's no reason you can't do that. You're in charge of the contract. So these are the reasons why to involve the neighbors. You don't want surprises. And nothing like having some screaming Mimi coming out when you just fired up the excavator, you're getting ready to go to work, and now this lady's got a problem. So you want to try to get that fire put out before it starts. You don't know how they feel about any of those things. You're not going to know what's going to happen. And you're going to send some $20, $12, $15 an hour guy out there to do the work, and he's going to run into this, and he might approach it the wrong way. So this is boss work here. This is yours to do. You get this straightened out, get people figured out, especially with herbicides, because of the drift factor. And it's emotional for a lot of people. And there's a lot of misinformation, so you got to do some education there. And that's why another reason why we're working in districts is to get you so that there's more familiarity with it in the district before you get there. We're hoping to save you some time and energy on that. And then cooperation, we've talked about that to death. And then be creative on solutions. Like I said, that pink foam that you use to insulate foundations, makes a great cover for windows and stuff, and you can use it over and over again. Keep a bunch of that around in your yard to use for that. These are all the people you might encounter, just saying, at any given job, at any given moment, at any given time, especially in the city of Bandon. So, good to know. Make that list, get it on your phone, figure out who you're gonna call, make friends in each of those locations if you can. If you work regularly in Port Orford, make friends in Port Orford, Goose Creek Transfer, soil and conservation people. You know, make friends with them. Get those on your short list and get them in your phone so you can call them when you hit something. Just saying. Okay, again, cooperation, collaboration. We're looking here at Beach Loop Road. Okay, so here's an example. This is kind of in the area of the condos at the Colony right here, and these neighbors right here. There's some crazy parcels here that you can't access from Whale Watch Way or anything. There's that little city right away that comes down here, and there's that Song's house, and the Millers used to have a house down here. And this, you know, to get into this place, you have to go up this long driveway. This is a case of where you need to make friends with this huge property owner right here to be able to access all of these people right there, because their bluff side is their gorse side. So you're going to have to go through these people's property to get to each one of these all the way through here. Okay. Okay. So this is one step that none of us can skip. One is to identify the plant first. Okay, you're using herbicides that are labeled for a certain thing. If you don't identify that plant, how do you know what to spray it with? Okay, and you want to know what the correct controls are for it. You want to have a plan for responsible disposal prior to working, whether it's your herbicides or whether it's your materials, whether it's the debris off of your equipment when you're washing it. Any of those things matter. So you need to think about what happens when you leave or what happens when you're done with this thing before you start with noxious weeds, because you're taking them where you go. Okay, so anytime you're working in them, you're carrying them with you, carrying them home and anywhere else. I actually was doing some consulting way the heck up Coos River, and there was a cedar tree there that had died of Phytophthora up at the top of that. And the guy worked for Coos Forest, no less. Guy worked for Coos Forest, and he was like, "What happened to my cedar tree?" And I'm like, "Clearly this died over 2 or 3 weeks very recently. This happened, this happened, this happened." He goes, "Yeah." I said, "That's Phytophthora." I said, "Where's that pickup truck been?" He said, "Well, I work for Coos Forest Protective, and I was down in Curry County." He came home every night with Phytophthora on his wheels and in his mud wells, and he parked it on next to that tree. And guess what? That one tree in the middle of nowhere in a very healthy forest had Phytophthora. Now that whole section of dirt has it. Just that simple. That's how easy it is to move things in weed. He was like, I'm not supposed to have it. It's supposed to be in Curry County. I'm like, you didn't have it until you brought it home. So that happens every time you move your equipment, okay? And it happens within the site itself. So we want to see you, like when you bust loose with the new equipment at the city abandoned, we want you to tackle all your clean areas first that you can. Pull out, pull back in, get your dirty areas. You don't have to wash when you're in a clean area. You have to wash when you're in a dirty area. So we want you to hit dirty area, dirty area, dirty area, go clean, and then go to the next clean area. So it's a lot of work on your end. You're going to have to bill for that, but it has to happen. Otherwise, you're going to be mowing the new patch in the clean area, the new patch next year, because that's exactly what's going to happen. 12 months later, your seed from the dirty area is going to be in the clean area, and now you're going to be mowing that area. Please think about your boots, your tools. We now have boot wash days in areas. We're getting a lot more serious about it in Curry County in terms of the guys coming in and out of the area there, tracking the Phytophthora lateralis, so they're tracking it all over the place. Your tracks, obviously, we have statistics on how bad tracks are because they just hang on to everything. And it's, Rex was just talking about the size of the gorse, so you're looking at the outside pustule on the outside of that gorse, that capsule is very seeable, but inside, the tiny little gorse seeds that are in there are just itty bitty bitty. So even us, and it sticks to everything. The other thing, we're watching street sweepers is a good example of that. So they're picking it up and they're just moving it on down the line. And then where you dump your street sweeper, you now have a nice mixture of everything in there, okay? And then it doesn't help when everybody's piling their stuff for the pickup, the debris pickup, and so all their noxious weeds are in a huge pile, and then that pile area is now a dirty site. See what I'm saying? So we're, as agricultural people and as vegetation managers, we're really aware that prevention happens with this hygiene piece is huge. And dollar for dollar, that's where your best money is. And also, if you start tracking this stuff around and you're the last piece of equipment was there, and they didn't have course before, and you do have course now, you're gonna get blamed for it. Just saying. So that goes on for a while, for a few years, that they might come back on you, okay? And we're highly educating the homeowner in this, because we don't want them going to and from their sites, around their site, neighbors' sites, and everything else with the same piece of equipment. So if possible, we want you to dispose of your debris on site. That's why we love the mowing part of it, the masticating, grinding, if you can. The shortest distance that you can in a covered vehicle to a responsible refuse site, like the dump. We're working on the sides of the highway on the way to the dump because of all of the people who did not transport correctly. And then monitor your wash-up sites. And there is a guy's card over here. He does pressure washing. So your equipment you can have a service come and pressure wash. There's mobile units that you can buy that would be a very good investment for your small company to get a good pressure washer. You can blow your equipment off before you leave when it's dry. That's the best scenario to get a quick clean. And it's not enough, but you can get yourself from site to site that way, or get back on the low boy and then take it to pressure wash if you have to. But a blower, always keep those on your trucks. Remember, the label's the law, PPE, right? And then I've given you some laundry tips on that green sheet today. And I want you to pay attention to that, because we are finding a lot more out about the transfer of pesticides from laundry to other members of the family. And you recontaminating your own clothing and then wearing it all day and sweating in it, okay? Or wearing your Carhartts for 4 days, and on day 1, you got a diesel spill. Day 2, you had a little hydraulic fluid. Day 3, you had Roundup. Day 4, that you had them on, you can now stand them up in the corner. Now they got triclopyr on them, okay? So it's not the one of any of those, it's the aggregate together, because the diesel you got on you is a great transdermal conductor. It's just like putting a surfactant on your skin, okay? So you're adding those up together. You may be getting more than you think, plus you're holding your steering wheel and your cell phone and your lunch and everything else. So we really want you to start thinking about your clothing a little more carefully. Okay, so what about the steep slopes? You're going to change your methods for removal in that situation. You want to talk to your people as they start freaking out about erosion. You want to stay calm and stay on top of it. We have models for this. We have videos on the website for the Gorse Action Group. We have a brand new fresh site that's just been cut both by hand with cut stump as well as with a grinding equipment right across from Fred Grenance at the corner, sharp corner right there by the little bridge. The The Powers property right there is a brand new fresh cut. It's 6 months old now. We have lots and lots of people that have hand cut on the Jetty at the end of Madison Street. Mrs. Seeley has done an amazing job. And then we have the Coquille Point example, all the way from Madison Street cut off all the way around to 11th Street. People can walk that whole area and look over the steep slope, full on headland, straight into the weather there. I can tell you because I did that project and it was weather. I'm telling you, serious weather. And I did that in January and February with inmates. I had 20 men on that bluff with hail, sleet, storm, everything, and no erosion. Just saying, no erosion. So then when you have the vegetation management plan in place, that gets filed with BEAR. So these people are getting letters that are going to require them to have a vegetation management plan. That gets filed with BEAR. There's an actual checklist that comes on the website, on the GAG website, and you have to go through that checklist, and it tells you the slope, and it tells you how much gorse and what other weeds are there and who you need to contact. So this checklist is on the GAG website. I encourage you to get familiar with it. You can help make the sale or make the client by helping them through that process and telling them, okay, we're going to change methods here. Steep slope is 20% of your property. We're going to do this method for 20%. This flat area here, we can grind everything on this area. It's a cultural site, but we got this. We know what we're doing. We're going to do that. And then here's the business card of somebody who does hydro seeding in your area. I recommend that you have them come in and work right behind me, and you can do this about, this time, and the city of Bandon will be perfectly happy. What'll happen is if you get one of these letters and it's your district and you don't get back to the city of Bandon and you don't file a vegetation management plan, eventually some nice little man will come along and he carries a gun. And he will fine you $750 a day, per day. He has the ability to do that. So we're serious. It's going to happen. Now that's down the road. Compliance is our goal. But you do have that tool in your toolbox. If you have a client that is never going to go there, eventually they're going to have to go there. And so it's really incumbent upon us to do it the nice way, which is to help them through the vegetation management plan, make contact with the city, tell them, hey, my husband just died. It's a pandemic. And my Social Security got cut in half. I'm not going to get to it for 2 years, but I have a plan and I will commit $5,000 a year and I'm going to start here. That's literally what you can file with the city. As long as you let them know that you're thinking about it, you got the letter, and BEAR's on your case, then they know that you're in compliance because you're actively working on it. We're going to hit it hard and heavy January, February, the Jetty though. So you also have these great examples, and you have the Bandon demo project that you can send people down. It's a self-educating walking tour. So you don't have to blah, blah, blah like I'm doing. You can walk that tour. Somebody can walk that tour and look at it. And the GAG website is huge. It shows all these projects. So you send them to the GAG website. Pick up brochures. Take a handful. Have as many of those brochures as you want. Just stick them into people's face and say, here you go. You need to get the same education I just got. So again, documentation is huge. Both parties should do that. You should remain on site. If something goes bad, you need to stay there and deal with it. Stop the work so that you have time to stop and think. Adjust the plan if you hit a piece of equipment or a utility, or you see something that you don't like there, go around it. A big rocks out there on the Jetty, go around it. You might have to change things. If you do change things, you write down the specifics of what happened and why you had to change what you were doing. Again, make photos and copies of anything. If you get into a little sticky wicket, call somebody as a third party and try to diffuse the situation and see if you can work that out, whether call BEAR or hire me or something to kind of walk it through. We'll back you up and talk to you about it, talk to both parties about what might have gone wrong. And then try to find a solution. That's huge. So one of the things that we're going after is voluntary management, as we said. There's not going to be a simple boilerplate solution for everybody, but they're going to be really similar. So it's not like we're reinventing every single piece of property. We have a profile that kind of works that we've done for the last 20 years, and we've modified that and added international to it. And now we have some really strong evidence of what works, and we have lots and lots of projects of doing it and having it work, so we can really send people places. We didn't have that when we first started doing gorse removal here. We didn't have the equipment that you guys have right now, which is awesome. We didn't have the number of contractors that were doing it. We didn't have the clientele with enough money to do it. So a lot has changed. And we didn't have state and federal agencies who understood it. Like Fish and Wildlife is on it. They're not letting anything that's non-native on their property. So as the neighbors see the progress, this is where you're going to get these coalitions of people, these coalitions and these collaborations that are going to happen. And This is really where your people skills are gonna come into play, and this is where the profit is, just saying. This is where the profit is. Aggregate these projects together. This is where your access is. This is where the repeat coming back is gonna be simpler if you can aggregate